The Israeli government sees me as an existential threat to their settler colonialist racist apartheid regime. That is why now. And they've done everything that they can think of to discredit me and try and destroy my career and, if possible, destroy me and my family.
Rock star Roger Waters has been promoting what many regard as classic anti-Semitic tropes for years.
If we shout the lie loud enough, Roger Waters is an anti-Semite, we'll be all right. We'll get people to believe it. We can vilify him, we can probably destroy him, and we will get him in the end. Well, no, you aren't.
I'm John Ware, working with the charity Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, and I'm going to examine the evidence for the charge that Roger Waters is an anti-Semite. I talked to people who've worked closely with him and who are speaking publicly for the first time.
He does things and says things that Jewish people take as an attack against us as a group.
This dish comes and Roger kind of pushes it with his arm and he goes, "That's it! This is Jew food! What's with the Jew food?"
If you're one of those, I love Pink Floyd, but I can't stand Roger's politics, people, you might do well to fuck off to the bar.
In June 2023, at the O2 Arena in London, the former Pink Floyd band member Roger Waters took a break from his concert to make an announcement.
There's a lady who lives, I think, somewhere in London, tweeting appalling things about me.
That lady is author Polly Sampson. She's married to Pink Floyd guitarist David Gilmour and has known Waters for years. She tweeted that Waters is an anti-Semite to his rotten core, a megalomaniac and a misogynist.
She talked about me being an anti-Semite to my rotten core. Well, all I have to say about Polly Sampson is, imagine waking up to that every morning.
To end it with, can you imagine waking up with that every morning? No matter what the motivation is, it's just, it's incendiary, it's sexist, it's provocative, and it's unnecessary.
Bob Ezrin is a legend in the music business. He's worked with everyone from Taylor Swift to Kiss, from Lou Reed to U2. Alice Cooper likened him to the hugely influential producer of the Beatles, George Martin. Ezrin co-produced the Wall album by Pink Floyd when Roger Waters was still a band member and has known him for decades.
Roger is a brilliant songwriter. He's a brilliant poet. Somehow he marries language with melody in the most effortless way, so it just falls out of your mouth, and it just feels natural, and it is universally relatable. Not only were Roger and I partners in the music, we were also friends. Roger's a really complicated guy. He is exquisitely sensitive and insensitive at the same time. There were other times when he was really tender and very sweet, and I loved the man. I did.
Do you love him now?
Part of me still loves him. Part of me is very upset with him for positions that he's taking in the public that affect me as a Jew and affect my people and my family and my friends. And I feel that's why I have to do this interview and speak about it publicly.
Come on.
Norbert Stachel was once Waters' saxophonist, touring with him all over the world. Like Ezrin, he too is Jewish, a fact that Waters took great interest in.
Well, he's looking at me and he says, you know, Norbert, I'd like to take this opportunity to maybe get to know you a little bit better. And I told him a little bit about my family background, that they're Ashkenazi Jews, that they're Holocaust survivors from Minsk and Poland. And he kind of was smiling in a kind of a awkward way. He says, how about other relatives? Are there relatives on your father's side? I said, not that I'm aware of. I think most of them were killed. He went, oh. He says, I can help you feel like you're meeting your long-lost relatives. I'll introduce you to your dead grandmother. I can do a good Polish peasant, an imitation, an impression of a Polish peasant woman. He tried to go into character as a babushka, and he puts on this impression of an old hag. You know, he does it, he makes his voice a certain way. He tries to portray a Polish Jewish peasant woman's voice. It was kind of like a slapstick, insulting way someone would think a person of no education and low class, and maybe not real smart would speak and talk. What got me is after he does this, he goes, now you've met your grandmother. How do you feel now?
Why did he want to do this, do you know?
Because he knew that I wouldn't challenge him on it, because I wanted his money and I wanted his gig.
It was a power.
I wanted the power thing. Yeah, that's all. An arrogance thing, and maybe an evil thing.
There's a bit of Roger that's a megalomaniac. There's a bit of Roger that's he's a bit narcissistic. He is a bit. Roger is kind of rock and roll's Donald Trump on certain levels, It's like he's not even there.
In 2002, Norbert Stachel was with Roger Waters in Bangkok.
There's this thing called the ping pong, where apparently women, they'd use their womanly parts of their body to do strange things, like to impress people. They train themselves to peel bananas, or carry bowling balls across the stage, or shoot ping pong balls out
of their vagina.
Yeah.
What was he asking you to do?
He ordered me in front of everybody, but it's not something I particularly want to go watch. And then Roger threatened me in a funny way, like showing me who's boss. Norbert, if you don't do this, it could jeopardize your position in the band. And I said, oh, really? Why? You want me to play saxophone for you, right? Why do I have to go watch women do these things with their body, with their vagina? What does that have to do with doing a good musical job in your band?
What was behind it, as you understood it?
As far as I understand it, again, it's a power trip. To show he's the boss, you do what I say or else. I pay you well, I give you gifts, I wine and dine you, I fly you in nice airplanes and put you on big stages with nice lights on you and let you play your little saxophone, and shame on you.
He's a bully. Roger can be a bully. He's been a bully forever, for as long as I know anyway. And it's a word that people around him who've been around him for a long time use over and over and over. He's a bully. And what are bullies? Bullies are people who find the weak spot in others to make themselves feel more powerful, and they push those weak spots over and over again.
Waters appeared to pick a weak spot when Bob Ezrin came to England to co-produce Pink Floyd's iconic The Wall album 4 decades ago. Ezrin recalls that Waters came up with an impromptu ditty about Pink Floyd's agent at the time, Brian Morrison, who was himself Jewish.
I can't remember the exact circumstance, but something like, the last line of the couplet was, "'Cause Maury is a fucking Jew." It was my first inclination that there may be some anti-Semitism under the surface. Now, Roger knew that I'm Jewish, so I didn't know whether this was another one of those sort of button-poking things that he was doing just to see if I would react, or whether he just didn't even get how offensive that might be to a Jewish person.
And when you said to him, well, what did you say to him?
You know, I'm embarrassed to say that I was so shocked that I didn't say anything. I had no idea what was behind that, or whether I was, did he expect to get a rise, in which case I wasn't going to do anything? Was he really clueless? And I probably should have said, that's not funny. But this was early on in the relationship, and I kind of chalked it up to, just stupidity on his part, and also to what I understood to be a kind of nascent anti-Semitism that existed in England and in many places around the world.
We're familiar with Roger Waters' button pushing, with his baiting of Jews. He's taken Israelis and compared them to Nazis. I mean, within living memory of the Holocaust, that is about the most wounding thing that you can say to a Jew, is that they're like the Nazis. He says that Zionism should be gently removed. Now, Zionism is the emancipation, liberation movement of Jews. It's a necessary call for Jews to be afforded the same rights of self-determination as enshrined in Article 1 of the United Nations Charter, as afforded to all other peoples. But for us, Roger thinks they should be gently removed. Now, in a world where the vast majority of Jews consider themselves to be Zionists, what are we supposed to make of this idea of being removed? When we hear him say, for example, that certain politicians are in hock to Tel Aviv, they're the puppets of Tel Aviv, what are we supposed to make of that? When he says that Israelis have taught the Americans how to, quote, murder the blacks, which is actually something he ended up apologizing for, but he did say it. What are we supposed to make of that? What are we supposed to make of it when he says that there is a Jewish lobby in the music industry? I mean, it keeps coming back to a question, which is that Roger Waters is literally a rock star. He could do anything. He's got this platform which allows him to influence tens of thousands of people at his concerts, millions of people via social media, and yet he keeps using it for this, to push the buttons of Jews, to bait Jews, to keep on coming back to Jews. What kind of a person does that with that kind of a voice?
Roger Waters has consistently denied he's an anti-Semite.
Anti-Semite? Anti-Semite? I'm an anti-Semite. Are you insane?
I don't believe that Roger sees himself as an anti-Semite. And in the same way that most people don't see themselves as racist. If you say to somebody, are you a racist? They'll say, absolutely not.
Clearly, I don't have an anti-Semitic bone in my body. I never have. I've never done anything anti-Semitic. I've never said anything anti-Semitic.
We're at a very traditional restaurant of a specific kind of Lebanese cuisine, and the waiters kept bringing over dish after dish after dish after dish, and so far there was no meat on any of these dishes. It was all vegetarian-based stuff, and these musicians were complaining, and Roger had to speak up as the spokesperson, I guess, and take charge because he's the boss. And what he says goes, because he's Roger Waters. Finally, the 12th or 13th dish came out. The waiter seemed intimidated already by the attitude and personalities and the loudness and that kind of arrogance. And finally, this dish comes, and Roger kind of pushes it with his arm, and he goes, "That's it! That's it! Where's the meat? Where's the meat? What's with this? This is Jew food. What's with the Jew food? Take away the Jew food." And I'm just sitting there, oh boy, tongue-tied again, and kind of in a panic. I don't know what to do. Am I supposed to leave and then be judged
Waters' concerts are as much about protest politics as rock and roll. For years, their enduring symbol has been a floating, inflatable pig.
I think Roger sees himself as an anti-fascist. I think Roger sees himself as someone who opposes racism and opposes, totalitarianism and opposes stereotypes and all that stuff. He sees himself that way, and I think in his mind that pig was symbolic of all the bad thinking people have about other people in the world, and he assimilated it into one symbol that floats over top of the audiences at his concert.
We've had access to some of Waters' internal emails from 2010 when he was planning a worldwide tour. Amongst the symbols he suggested should be stuck on the pig were Stars of David and the following epithets: dirty kike, follow the money, scum. Kike is a notoriously offensive word used to denigrate Jews.
There is a pig, and it has a number of symbols on it, including the crucifix and the star and crescent. The Star of David is only part of a group of symbols that represent dogma.
Waters maintains he's highlighted racism and religious dogma with all sorts of symbols.
Maybe, but the juxtaposition between dirty kike, follow the money, scum, a Star of David, all stuck on a pig, was especially incendiary and for Jews crossed the line.
The problem is the pig has a Star of David. Nobody really understands the profound meaning that Roger will ascribe to the pig. They just see symbols of anti-Semitism. And so for the anti-Semites in the audience, that's a rallying cry. That's a flag they can follow.
After protests from his lighting director, who was also Jewish, Waters abandoned the epithet about dirty kike. However, he pressed on with another idea, showering his fans with confetti.
In this email, Waters proposes that amongst other religious symbols, a Star of David, a $sign, and a swastika should be dropped like bombs as part of the visual content of the wall show.
Smarting from his lighting director's objection to dirty kike, Waters commented to the rest of his team by email, and I quote, "I gather that at least one of us is offended by the inclusion of at least one of these symbols." Now, Waters knew that the person he referred to as one of us, his lighting director, was Jewish.
In fact, at the opening show, there were no swastikas. Waters settled for $signs being dropped after Stars of David. There were still protests, though, this time from the public.
Roger Waters says, "Okay, I can see people are offended. We'll just have the Star of David next time."
Look, the dimness of it is just astounding to me because he's such a smart guy. And
But this is the Trump element.
This is the Trump element. The Trump element here is Roger's on a soapbox. At the end of the day, he doesn't really, really care how we feel about it. But I care.
Despite protests, Waters continued floating the pig with the Star of David stamped on it until the summer of 2013. Ten years on, Waters often compares Israel to the Nazis, who tried to wipe Jews off the face of the earth. In his recent tour, he likened the fatal shooting by an Israeli soldier of Palestinian reporter Shireen Abu Akleh with the murder of Anne Frank, one of the 6 million Jews who died in the Holocaust. US authorities have said that unlike Anne Frank, the reporter was likely killed accidentally.
One of the devices that Roger uses, that's a sort of preferred device amongst self-avowed anti-Semites, is the sort of drawing of equivalence between current acts of the Israeli government or the IDF or whatever, and acts that the Nazis perpetrated on the Jews themselves and other people. But once again, what we're talking about is the effect of what he's doing and what it does to society. Now, he may say, I'm hoping that this gets people to rethink the relationship with the Palestinians and maybe give them a free state. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. Well, if that's all you're doing, leave out those tried and true tropes of anti-Semites over the years, of equivalence between acts of Jews and the people who try to wipe them off the face of the earth. Leave out the kinds of things that inflame anti-Semitism and make people see us as a people as being other and being enemies.
If we shout the lie loud enough, Roger Waters is an anti-Semite, we'll be all right. We'll get people to believe it. We can vilify him. We can probably destroy him. And we will get him in the end. Well, no, you won't. Because it is a lie.
Roger doesn't get to define what's anti-Semitism and what is not. Roger has to understand how the people who suffer from anti-Semitism feel about what he says and what he does. And he has to take responsibility for that. We are human beings. We're people. And I feel like Shylock, I feel like, I have to plead my case as a human. But I shouldn't have to do that, where Jewish people almost universally will stand up and say they see Roger Waters' actions as anti-Semitic. Then he has to understand that whether he intends them to be or not, the effect of them is that.
That was certainly the effect on Norbert Stachel when he was playing with Waters. He recalls the moment a fellow Jewish member of Waters' entourage approached him.
He explained to me, says, Norbert, us Jews recognize each other. I know you're Jewish. I know that I'm Jewish. Don't ever tell Roger that I'm a person of Jewish. Okay, just don't do it. I like you a lot, but don't jeopardize my job. I need to tell you something. If you want to keep this job, let me give you some advice. Just shut up about the Jewish stuff. Keep it to yourself. Just when he says something, just go with it, or politely bow out of it, or have to go to the bathroom or whatever, because...
Just don't make a fuss.
Don't make a fuss. If you want, I'm telling you this as a friend, keep the gig. You want the gig, right? You want to do the full duration of this. You want to have the experience and make the money, travel the world, fly all over the place, meet people. And I said, yeah. He says, well, take my advice. Don't react.
Don't react to his questions about you being Jewish.
Or don't let myself take offense.
The notion that I'm anti-Semitic is ludicrous. This is something that is aimed at anybody who tries to raise their voice against the policies of the current very right-wing, settler-based Israeli government.
Waters often claims he's merely speaking out against the Israeli government and championing Palestinian rights. But he also seems to think that Zionists believe they see themselves as superior to the rest of mankind.
All of the kind of Zionist Israeli lobby in the United States, they attack. But it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's because, unless let me put this in the correct way, unless they believe that they're chosen, unless they believe that God, A, exists, and B, if there is a monotheistic being, a superpower, a superhuman being who controls everything, that he has actually decided that they are very, very special, that they're exceptional, and that they should be served by every other human being on the planet. If they believe that, then they can do anything.
Zionism is an essential part of the Jewish identity. What the Jewish state does is a subject of argument amongst Jews. You know, there are many of us who feel like there needs to be a different approach to how the Jews are dealing with the Palestinians around them. There are many forms of Zionism. But to say that, you know, you can challenge Zionism without challenging Jews as a people that's just naive. It's naive, it's uninformed, and it's insensitive. And, you know, Roger's not that naive, I don't think, nor is he uninformed. However, Roger has been insensitive from time to time, and this is the best example I have of it, is how he's dealing with this issue.
Norbert Stachel recalls a private conversation in which Waters argued that Jews weren't even a race.
I overheard an argument with a former girlfriend of Roger's getting into a van to go to a venue, and they were arguing, and they were arguing about, are Jews a race or not? And Roger, I heard him say, no, they're white European men that grow beards, and they practice the religion Judaism, but they're no different than me. They have no difference in their background or their history or their culture or anything. They speak a different language, and they practice a different religion, and they grow beards. She's saying Jewish people, there's Ashkenazim, there's Sephardim, there's Mizrahi Jews, they're from different parts. They all have their lineage, no matter how light-skinned and European-looking and Caucasian they look, they all have their roots and their DNA come from North Africa and Israel. That's where they come from, to certain degrees. And he was, you know, Boulder Dash, bullocks, you know, they're just white men like me with beards.
And how close to this conversation were you, in fairness?
I was in the back seat. They were in the front seat in a four-row van. And I was just like, oh, gosh, where's this guy coming from? You know? I mean, I'm employed by a buffoon.
It's not like he doesn't know that people are hurt. It's not like he doesn't know that this is also inflaming anti-Semites. There are people who are applauding him and egging him on, who wish that the Jews would go back where they came from.
In Britain, former leader of the far-right British National Party, Nick Griffin, has publicly praised Waters. And in the United States, the former Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard, David Duke, has also praised Waters. Waters was being attacked, said Duke, for, and I quote, daring to expose Israel's crimes and the crimes of the Jewish-controlled US government and media.
And it doesn't really matter what Roger thinks he is. It only matters what he does. And it matters how what he does affects people. He does things and says things that Jewish people take as an attack against us as a group, as an ethnic group and an ideology.
Waters appears convinced that Israel has been engaged in a vast conspiracy to control political life in America and Britain. He's referred to politicians in both countries having masters in Tel Aviv, pulling their strings.
The Labour movement in England has been finally taken over by the Blair.
This notion of malevolent Jewish power is widely recognized as a classic anti-Semitic trope.
And what they want to do is absolutely destroy the labour movement in the United Kingdom. And it's disgusting. And it's at the behest of the government of a foreign country, that foreign country being Israel.
When a non-Jewish British Member of Parliament called out Waters on his views, he said that he was working for his masters at the Foreign Office in Tel Aviv, and then he called him a cripple. Okay? This is how he responds to things. He says that anti-Semitism is a smear. In fact, he says that anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews, is a, quote, smear sword. As in, it's a weapon that's wielded against him unjustly. And when people call him out, he keeps on saying that they are part of some kind of orchestrated campaign that is being controlled from Israel, that's being directed from Tel Aviv.
This is Roger Waters in 2020 talking about the late American Jewish entrepreneur Sheldon Adelson.
Sheldon Adelson, who is the puppet master pulling the strings of Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo. Sheldon Adelson believes that only Jews, only Jewish people are completely human, that they're attached in some way.
The chosen people of God, yeah.
And everybody else on earth is there to serve them. Mm-hmm. Sheldon Adelson believes this. I'm not saying Jewish people believe this. I'm saying he does. Mm-hmm. He is pulling the strings. Mm-hmm.
As well as being convinced that Israel pulls the strings of British and American politics, Roger Waters worries they're out to conquer him.
The Israeli government sees me as an existential threat to their settler, colonialist, racist, apartheid regime. That is why now. And they've done everything that they can think of to discredit me and try and destroy my career and, if possible, destroy me and my family.
Waters seems to be utterly fixated on the idea that, quotes, the hand of Tel Aviv orchestrating everything to do with him, which is plainly nonsense.
Well, okay. So we can do a little bit of psychoanalysis. If Roger feels like Tel Aviv is centering him out, it must be for a reason. Because he must be aware of the fact that what he's saying is incendiary, inflammatory, and it's going to upset Jewish people, right? Right? You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm just anti what they're doing in Palestine, but by the way, Tel Aviv is orchestrating everything in the world. That's an anti-Semitic trope. It's been used for centuries to justify the murder, the subjugation, the expulsion, the conversion of Jews.
So we were on one of these band excursions. We went on safari. I sat with a couple people, and one of them in particular goes way back with Roger, and he's a very nice man. I asked him, I keep seeing and sensing weird things from Roger about how he feels about people of Jewish background and his sentiment towards Jewish people and this Jewish homeland called Israel and all these things oriented. I hear things that are distasteful to me. And he goes, well, Rogers has very strong opinions about Jewishness or people that claim to be Jewish.
You regard Waters as anti-Semitic?
I personally do. After these things that I heard and all these little things that I've already spoke about that I experienced. What else would I call it? I don't know what,
Obviously, got to be fair to Roger Waters. He has insisted time and time again that he's not an anti-Semite. He says that he finds anti-Semitism odious. And in fact, I've seen one clip where he looks as if he's almost close to tears at the suggestion that he is anti-Semitic. What's your view?
Do I consider him to be like an active anti-Semite? Do I think he considers himself to be an anti-Semite? I'll bet you dollars for donuts he does not. And he'll be the first person to say, I'm not anti-anything. I'm in favor of everyone, and But as a person with a powerful public platform, he has a responsibility to understand that what he does affects other people. And so he may not be one, but he walks like one, he quacks like one, he swims like one. So, you know, from my point of view, he's functionally a duck.
We invited Roger Waters for an interview so I could put these allegations to him. We also offered him the chance to respond in writing. So far, we've not heard from him.
I love all my brothers and sisters in this room. I love all my brothers and sisters all over the world, irrespective of their ethnicity or religion or nationality. There we are, we got that out of the way.
But has Roger Waters got that out of the way? In the coming year, he'll play to tens of thousands of fans. He's made hundreds of millions over a long career. But at what cost to the world's Jewish people and their fight against bigotry and prejudice?
Campaign Against Anti-Semitism is dedicated to the pursuit of justice, exposing and countering anti-Semitism wherever it arises without fear or favour. If you have information that you would like us to see, please contact us confidentially via investigations@antisemitism.org.